Rolly stole with the rollie on. What was our getaway car? Jag portfolio. You hear me? Hey, I heard I had some sneak dissers. Whoever feeling hot, that AR got a heat sensor. Cuz said don't entertain them hungry niggas. I wish I would pay attention to these homeless niggas.
As an NBA fan, I think it's obvious that we overlook numerous things. Numerous players get slept on, such as my boy Tobias Harris in the All-Star voting, and also numerous teams get slept on as well. And in this video, we are going to talk about one of the teams that I think are being very disrespected and not talked about at all. Like, I have not seen no media outlets, nobody talk about this team and how great they have been this season, especially when you consider the struggles that they've gone through in terms of injuries. YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Young Mustard, and today I'm here to talk about the disrespect, and I don't know if it's blatant or they just don't know, but the disrespect towards the Indiana Pacers. Because I understand that you have teams such as the Milwaukee Bucks and Toronto Raptors, but honestly, aside from those teams, there should be no reason why the Pacers are not brought up in the discussion among the better teams in the Eastern Conference. I mean, people talk about Boston more than they talk about Indiana, and Boston has not even met the expectations that people set for them going into this year. Meanwhile, Indiana has superseded them. Because when you look at this roster, numerous players have stepped up, and though offensively they haven't really been the greatest team in the world, as they are 23rd in points per game with around 108 points a game, defensively they have been one of the best teams in basketball. I mean, aside from the Oklahoma City Thunder, they are arguably the best defensive team in the NBA, and there's no question that they're the best defensive team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, let's just look at some of the team stats on the defensive side of the ball. They're 4th in opponents' points in the paint, 3rd in average scoring margin, 2nd in opponents' field goal percentage, 2nd in steals, 2nd in defensive efficiency, and get this, they lead the league. Yes, they are 1st in opponents' points per game. This is a team that, though offensively they are not the greatest team in the world, and I would even argue they're a little bit below average in league standards, they are still one of the best defensive teams in the league, and that is more than made up for their lack of offensive success. And honestly, when you consider the fact that Victor Oladipo has missed some time this season, that only makes the fact that they're this great defensively even greater, because Victor Oladipo was a first-team All-NBA defender last year and led the league in steals. And speaking of people that have stepped up on the defensive side of the ball, shout out to Myles Turner, because Myles Turner, even though I think offensively he still has some room to grow, and I do expect more improvement, on the defensive side of the ball, he has been a beast, as he is leading the league in blocks. And not only that, Myles Turner is one of the better defenders this season, as I think he is among the 10 best defenders in the league, and I can see him making an All-NBA defensive team at the end of the year, if he keeps this up, of course. Because Myles Turner, all the knocks on the defensive side of the ball has only been about consistency, because he can have moments and spurts where he is phenomenal on the defensive side of the ball and nobody can score in the paint because his presence. But then he could also have moments where defensively you kind of question his IQ. Sometimes he would fall for pump fakes, sometimes he wouldn't switch. You know, it would just be basic things where you question his IQ on the defensive side of the ball. But this year, I have definitely seen improvement on the defensive side of the ball. And though I don't think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year or anything, I wouldn't be shocked if they slid him in possibly the first-team All-NBA defense. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think more than likely if he makes an All-NBA defensive team, it'll be the second team. But I definitely think he has stepped up on that defensive side of the ball. And from three, he's even become a little bit more consistent. Even though he's not taking that many three-pointers, he has stuck to what he knows, and that is the mid-range game and the post. And I appreciate him knowing his strengths and his weaknesses and what he can and can't do, and him playing his game accordingly. And when it comes to playing your game accordingly, who can I highlight more than Domantas Sabonis? Because Sabonis this year has been phenomenal off of the bench. I definitely think he is a candidate for 6th Man of the Year and a low-key dark horse to win the award. I know everybody is carried away with what Derrick Rose is doing in Minnesota, but you also have to consider the fact that D Rose is putting up numbers that aren't necessarily translating to wins all the time. But Domantas Sabonis, though he isn't the star player of the team, he's contributing in a big major way to the success of a team that could potentially make the NBA Finals, which I will explain later. Because Domantas Sabonis this year is averaging 15 points, just under 10 rebounds, yes, nearly a double-double off the bench, 3 assists, just under a steal and a block, while shooting 63% from the field and 74% from the free throw line. And though defensively he isn't the greatest in the world, and some people could argue he is even a liability, he has definitely stepped up offensively to the point that you can kind of overlook his lack of ability on the defensive side of the ball, and there's a reason that he's coming off of the bench. And even when you look at the other role players that have stepped up, Bogdanovic has stepped up as he's shooting around 46% from 3 and averaging 16 points. Thaddeus Young pitching in with 12 points and 6 rebounds. And also, even though from 3 it's a little shaky, he's shooting very efficient from the field as he's shooting 52%. Darren Collison, though his scoring did dip a little bit, Darren Collison is still shooting the ball very well and very efficient from the field. And when it comes to Tyreke Evans, though he hasn't been the player that I think a lot of us thought he could be moving forward, especially what we saw last year in Memphis from him, he is still shooting the ball from 3 very exceptionally as he's shooting nearly 38%. And though his efficiency isn't very good, he's still very flexible and can guard multiple positions on the court. Not at an elite level, but definitely still at a solid, respectable level. And also even just other players that have stepped up from time to time. Shout out to players like Doug McDermott and also Corey Joseph. Even though their numbers don't show it, they are very vital pieces to that bench, and they have definitely stepped up. This Indiana bench and their role players have definitely stepped up when their role was called. And of course, you know I was not gonna go through this video without talking about my boy Victor Oladipo, because Victor Oladipo, though he has missed time with injury and stuff like that, when it comes to his ball handling ability, I have definitely seen improvement. As a passer, he has definitely become more comfortable handling the ball and being a facilitator at times. And though his numbers and his efficiency don't reflect how great he has been on the defensive side of the ball, he's still playing that very elite. He's even averaging nearly 2 steals a game. And offensively, he's averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. There's only about a handful of players in the NBA that can give you 25 and 5, and I'm glad Victor Oladipo has elevated his game to the point that he can comfortably do that. Because in the playoffs last year, when it came to double teams and sometimes the way defenses prepared against them, primarily the Cavs obviously, sometimes Victor Oladipo just didn't react the way that I thought he should. And I definitely think this season he has reacted to defenses way better than he did in the playoffs, and hopefully it carries over this postseason. And when it comes to the coach, I definitely think that even though Nate McMillan is not an elite coach or anything, he's not a Greg Popovich, he is working his way into that class. Because last year, this was a team that was not a great 3-point shooting team, but was still able to win games consistently. And this year, though the 3-point shooting has gotten a little bit better from time to time, they are still not some elite 3-point shooting team, and they're not a great offensive team, but defensively they've all stepped up, and that's very impressive considering that some of these players aren't even great defensive players, and they still managed to play really solid team defense. And a lot of the props goes to Nate McMillan, because I definitely think he has instilled in this team that they have a role and they need to stick to it and know their strengths, and he puts them in situations where their weaknesses can't be exploited. So I definitely got to give a shout out to Nate McMillan. And when it comes to them making the finals, sure, I will admit the Bucks and the Raptors, they are still better teams in my eyes, and I still have the Raptors going forward to the NBA Finals. That is my prediction, and I've talked about that in my past videos. But I definitely think this Indiana Pacers team has a shot, because when you consider the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo has no shot, that is a secret recipe to any great coach in the NBA. And if Nate McMillan is the coach that I think he is, especially on the defensive side of the ball, with how great the Pacers have been this year on that side of the ball, I definitely think that could be a key to defeating the Milwaukee Bucks and even slowing down Giannis Antetokounmpo, because you really can't stop him. You can only pray to slow him down. And I definitely think his lack of a shot, even from the mid-range game, is a huge disadvantage for that roster if they go up against any coach that can implement a defensive system and game plan to stop him because of his lack of a shot. And when it comes to the Toronto Raptors, look, Kawhi Leonard is better than Victor Oladipo ever will be, and he is dominating this year, and I think he is a candidate for the MVP. But you can't overlook some of the other pieces on this roster and how they did not show up in the playoffs last season against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, primarily Kyle Lowry. Because though Kyle Lowry did put up really solid numbers, there were times and moments, especially in those fourth quarters, where Kyle Lowry failed to show up. And just aside from last year, he has had multiple times in the playoffs where he's failed to show up. And though last year may have been an anomaly when you look at his numbers in that series against the Cavaliers, but in other series and other moments, especially in the playoffs, he failed to show up. Him and his buddy DeMar DeRozan, not just DeMar, but Lowry himself is not excused from some of those playoff failures that the Raptors had in the past. So I definitely think that when it comes to Toronto Raptors, their past of playoff failures could come back to haunt them. And with that being said, I don't think there's any other team that can definitively beat this Pacers team. Look, you can point at the Sixers for all you want. The Sixers bench, until they get that together, the Sixers are going to have a hard time defeating any team. And when I mentioned Giannis's jump shot, that applies times 10 when it comes to Ben Simmons. So I definitely think the Sixers, though they do have a chance against anybody in the Eastern Conference. I mean, when you got Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Jimmy Butler, you still got a chance. But there are ways you can defeat that roster. And that bench, like I said, is just so suspect that you got to give them the side eye. So when it comes to the Indiana Pacers, people need to put respect on their name. They have been disrespected far too long, and I honestly think they have a shot of getting to the NBA Finals. Now, will they win the Finals if they get there? I'm not saying all that, but I definitely think they got a shot of getting there. And shout out to my man Sabonis. Shout out to my man Myles Turner for blocking shots every single night and leading the league in that. And also, you know, I gotta shout out my boy Victor Oladipo, man. He been hooping this year. I love the passing ability that I've seen from him, putting up really solid numbers. We're gonna prove him wrong again. So you guys make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel. Subscribe to my second channel. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. The links are down below. Also, comment your opinions if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm not wrong. Also, you guys, make sure you subscribe to the second channel. That will be on the screen right now, and the link will be down below in the description box. Y'all make sure y'all have a great day. I'm out. Peace.